Todd, you with me? Gary?
Where's Chief Benson?
You got Eva here somewhere? Chief? Good afternoon. We want to update the community and particularly the neighborhood in southwest Detroit on the progress that we are making on the transmission line break. As of today, we have shifted from the rescue phase to the service phase, and we are now going house to house. But before we leave the rescue phase, I want to again offer my deepest thanks to the men and women of the fire department, the police department, the Detroit Water and Sewer Department. I don't think we'll ever forget the image of the family in the bucket of the front loader at a time when the water was too deep even to walk in with the boats. They successfully rescued 63 adults, 31 children, and 13 pets. And the one gentleman who did go to the hospital for breathing problems, I've been updated, is in good shape and is expected to be released shortly. For anybody who saw the initial signs of the flood, that is truly remarkable, and we'll never be able to say thank you enough to everybody who responded, especially those guys who were out at 3 in the morning banging on doors, trying to get people out as the water was first rising. I think they prevented a much greater tragedy. Let me tell you where we stand right now. There are 398 houses in the emergency flood zone. We have 83 families staying in hotels right now. That's 296 individuals. I spent about an hour and a half in the neighborhood today talking to people. About 20% are in hotels. I would estimate another 20% are living, have moved in with somebody else. But about 60% of the residents, I would estimate, are still in their houses and are in the neighborhood. And you can see it's a very tight-knit neighborhood where people are pitching in together. We are doing very thorough assessments. And we know right now we have 72 houses without power. And this is a big part of why so many people have stayed. The great majority of houses still have power, and even a number of houses who have lost heat are living there with electric heaters. Getting that power restored, obviously, is a high priority. We have 190 houses with basement flooding and 174 with no heat. Obviously, those two numbers are heavily correlated. The basement flooding put the furnaces out. We are seeing the basement flooding dropping. In the great majority of those households, unless your drain is completely clogged, it is steadily slowing down. But almost half of our houses right now do not have their furnace working. I want to say thank you to every one of the volunteers that's out on the streets today and all the city teams, the Department of Neighborhoods, the Health Department, and the like. It was cold out there, and you're walking down streets with piles of ice that you're having to navigate. But the people of this city are just remarkable. And I talk to people who are staying in their homes and are just going to continue to watch out for their neighbors as long as they've got power. They're going to be there. I was with one gentleman who I encouraged to move because his furnace wasn't working. And he has a large dog that has cancer. And he felt like the best way to care for the dog was to stay in the house, and so he's got electric heaters that he says is working for him now, and we're making sure that he has support there. And I met a number of folks who stayed in the hotel last night and were back in their house cleaning up today, but plan to return to the hotel this evening. And I think we're going to see that for a while. For every family staying in the hotel right now, and as you know, you not only have a hotel room, but you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner being provided by the hotel. You can stay in that hotel until the water's gone from your basement and your power and your heat are back on. In some cases, that may be relatively soon. It may take a month, but you can stay in that hotel until your house is ready for you to move all the way back in. Can't say enough about the Great Lakes Water Authority. I spent some time with GLEWA engineers at the site of the transmission break, and it is just a monumental hole in the ground. The magnitude of it is something you almost have to be up close to appreciate. But while I was there late this morning, they did succeed in shutting off the last bit of flow of water into that hole. That was quite an engineering feat, and that's going to allow the repairs to go forward. And Todd King from GLEWA will talk about how that's going to work. But at the site, we have two other issues that also can't be totally addressed until the main transmission line is fixed. I think we reported yesterday that we had a water main break in one of the city lines that had shut off water to 3 blocks, about 30 houses. That's right at the major collapse. We aren't going to be able to completely repair it until the main transmission line is fixed, but I do expect DWSD to have capped it so that only 3 or 4 people will be without water very shortly, and we're going to have to make longer-term arrangements for those 3 or 4 families. In addition, if everything else weren't enough, we had a gas leak at 5:30 last night at the same site. And the DTE crews came out on site, identified the leak right at the site of the collapse. They quickly shut off gas flow to the area, but that meant another 5 folks now are without gas. And I got a chance to talk to a couple of those families who, even when their gas was shut off, are staying in their house, and they said DTE dropped off multiple electric heaters for their house, and they were appreciative of DTE's response, and in light of that, they intended to stay. This is the story of these neighbors, one by one, is just remarkable, but I want to thank DTE for that quick response. I want to talk about what happens now to every one of you with these 398 houses. We are going into full recovery mode, and that starts with a city inspector. There are right now on those streets 80 inspectors from the Building and Safety Department, from the Health Department, and the Fire Department. They have to go into your house and assess the damage in the house. It is the first step before we can get in, replace the furnace, clean the basement, or anything. That city inspector has to be in the house and do that initial inspection. They're going to knock on your door. We're going to call you on the phone if you're at the hotel. We will be asking you to make an appointment because we're going to need you, if you are at the hotel, to come back and unlock the door for the inspectors. But it is my hope that we get all 398 houses inspected this week, because that is step 1. Step 2 is that Gary Brown and the Detroit Water and Sewer Department will have emergency contracts in place to start to do the repairs by Monday. These are the people who will drain your basement, who will repair or replace your furnace, who will clean it. But the contractors cannot come in if you don't have the city inspection complete. And so this is something that we cannot help you until you let us in the door. And if you want to schedule a time, or we haven't been in contact with you, we have the single phone number, 313-774-5261. But Dave Bell in the BC department tells me they absolutely have the capacity to complete all 398 inspections over the next 3 days, so long as we have cooperation, so that next week we can start to go into repair and replacement mode. And as I say, I want to see contractors in the houses next week. The insurance question is always going to be complicated, but this is simple. If you've got insurance, file your claim. What GLEWA and DWSD have committed is to cover the costs of the damage that's not insured, but you can start the process right now with your own insurance company. So don't wait. Please go and file that claim. And finally, I'm really pleased that Chief Bettison, we've seen nothing but cooperation and people looking out for each other, but Chief Bettison has committed to greatly increase the patrols in that neighborhood until the last repair is done and the last family is moved back, which is only appropriate because I'm glad to announce today Detroit City Council voted 9-0 to name Todd Bettison the permanent police chief of the city of Detroit. And with that, I will turn it over to the man who has been out there directing the repair of the transmission line from the beginning, from the Great Lakes Water Authority, Todd King.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo his statements with respect to all the cooperation that we've seen from the fire department, the police department, the building department, DWSD. It really has been a joint and team effort. So as the mayor mentioned, we have isolated the break, and we are beginning the excavation and the cleanup in the immediate vicinity of the break. Once that's completed and we've exposed the pipe, we will inspect it and determine what the cause of the water main break was. We are also in the process of talking with our pipe supplier. We have 2 emergency contractors on site that are assisting with the repairs and the recovery. And once we get a better idea on what type of break it was and how much of a section of pipe we're going to need to replace, we'll be able to put a better timeline on the overall repairs. But it's probably at least a week to 2 weeks of getting that pipe in place and welded up. So with that, I'll turn it over to Director Gary Brown from DWSD.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you to all the men and women of Great Lakes Water Authority, as well as your contractors that are out there working in frigid temperatures, getting the job done. So as the mayor indicated, the first step is to get the houses inspected, because it's my responsibility to get contractors under contract by early next week, by Monday, that are mobilized and ready to go to work. So what kind of work are we going to be asking the contractor to do? We want them to be able to dewater the basement. If the drains haven't allowed the water to get out of the basements, we're going to have to pump it out. We have to make sure that the homes have electrical systems that will allow our equipment to clean up the basements. We'll go in and bag up any trash that needs to go out to the curb. Certainly Ron Brundage of DWSD will have his crews picking that trash up as quickly as we can get it out there. And again, we will sanitize the basements, make sure the furnaces are operating, make sure the electrical systems are operating, and make sure that the home is safe for people to move back in. And that all begins with the inspection of BC, our Buildings and Safety Department, the inspectors that are out there right now going door to door, doing an assessment so that we know which contractors to assign to what level of work that we find out there. So I'm hoping that within the next 6 weeks, we can have all of this behind us with regards to having everyone back in their home. That's our goal. We're going to shoot for that and make sure that happens. So, Eva?
Buenas tardes. Ponerme mi lente para poder ver. Hoy se salieron 80 inspectores de la ciudad tocando las puertas de los residentes que están en el área del impacto de la rotura del agua. Ellos necesitan poder entrar a su hogar para poder evaluar los daños que se hicieron. Para la semana que viene, esperamos que los contratistas puedan salir también a revisar los daños para comenzar a hacer los arreglos, pero necesitan poder tener prueba de que los inspectores salieron a hacer su evaluación. So, por favor, necesitan poder entrar a su casa y tener todo el papeleo necesario para seguir adelante. Así que si no han recibido ninguna información, no se han podido comunicar con nadie, sigan llamando al 313-774-5261. También todavía tenemos para poder ir a un hotel de noche o si necesitan transportación, de nuevo llamen el teléfono para poder recibir toda la información y la asistencia. Gracias.
It's kind of hard to follow that right there. And so on my to-do list, as far as my new hobby, I will be learning Espanol. So Eva, I'll check you out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for definitely the confidence in appoint me as the interim chief and now chief, and to city council as well. So I'm humbled to be able to now say that at this first press conference to be able to say chief of police. So thank you for that. In regards to what we're doing from a police standpoint, the mayor's already said that we will be there. And so our job is to ensure public safety. So with that, over in the affected targeted neighborhood, we're gonna double our patrols. And last night I was out there, boots on the ground personally myself. I did about 14 hours yesterday. And matter of fact, called the mayor from the scene, was there at the sinkhole walking around. I got mud on my boots to prove it. We had established our command post, and so you definitely will see an increased presence from law enforcement, but it is just there to just ensure public safety of the workers, and then just public safety of the general community as well. And of course, to any residents that find themselves in need, feel free to call 911, and we will be there to respond. Also, if your vehicle needs to be towed, or if your vehicle is blocking public thoroughfare, we only have towed one vehicle so far, and we had the vehicle taken to the 4th Precinct, which is located at West 4700 4th Street. And so with that, there will be no charge, no fees, everything will be weighed. You will be able to go to the front lot and retrieve your vehicle. And so once again, we're gonna do stuff to help ensure that your vehicles are available to you, and we know that many of them are stuck in ice, and Ron Brundage and the DPW team will be applying salt to the area of vehicles and also sidewalks as well. And so we're doing everything that we can to ensure public safety and to ensure that we restore the area back to the quality of life that it had before. At this point, we'll open it up for questions, and I'll bring Mr. Mayor back up. Oh, and my partner, Chuck Sims, Commissioner Sims of the Fire Department.
Thank you, Chief, and congratulations on being permanent. Pleasure. It's going to be a pleasure working with you. So in regards to the fire department, once again, I just want to say thank you to all the men and women of the fire department and the collaboration that we had with all other department agencies. This is Detroit. So we had this problem. We came together as agencies, and we resolved it. We mitigated it, and this is just what we do. So my thank you goes out to Homeland Security, DPD, GSD, BC, Water Board. I hope I don't forget anybody, but just want to say thank you again, and the Detroit Fire Department will always be ready to respond. Thank you.
All right, and I just want to acknowledge the presence of Sue Coffey, the GLEWA director. I got to say, in the 11 years that GLEWA has been in existence, I've had my issues. The leadership has never been stronger at GLEWA than we have right now, and we're very fortunate to have that this week. And with that, I'll take any questions. So go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Whitney Burney from Channel 7. Just a couple questions for you. Number one, we got a lot of calls this morning. People were confused, a little panicked with the water release. Was that communicated to residents that that was going to be going on? A lot of them thought the neighborhood was flooding again.
Okay, so let me say this. By and large, the media has done an extraordinary job. But for a station to have reported without confirmation that flooding had started, you got to be more responsible than that. And so what the Great Lakes Water Authority has been doing is trying to figure out where the last bit of water coming in there was coming from, and they were turning different valves on and off until they successfully identified it. And so they had some water running as they were testing it, and we responded immediately. But I would ask that when you see something like that, I was sitting with Gary Brown when we heard your media report, and Gary said there's no way there is another break by teams there, and I would have heard it must be a false report. It took us 60 seconds to find out what the answer was. So I would just ask you to please call and confirm. I think we've been responsive, and we want to continue to be responsive.
Okay. The other question that I have for you, I know that you guys have talked a lot about some of the damages that'll be covered and how the city and GLEWA are working together to cover that financial responsibility. When it comes to renters, is that also something that'll be covered, specifically things that they lost, material, things like that?
We'll work that out, but I would expect so.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie Langton, Fox 2 WJ. Mayor, any quantity of how many extra police officers, firefighters, workers from Detroit Water Department, any that you've had to take care of this, which it looks like you've done a great job so far.
Yeah, you've been out there, Charlie. You probably count as well as I do, but it's been hundreds that we've had on the scene. And it's been amazing. When I run across a firefighter, they know what DWSD is doing. When I run across a DWSD person, they know where the police are going door to door. The communication between these groups has been tremendous. I don't know if you guys could even begin to estimate a number. It's a lot.
Thank you.
Nora Hall with the Detroit Free Press. A lot of residents have expressed concerns about not being able to pay their bills because they weren't able to go to work. For example, like their tools, if you're an electrician, were frozen, or someone's food truck was stuck in the water, frozen. Will entities also be covering those costs?
Yeah, we're going to work through that. Right
Okay.
now, what we can do is we've got the Uber service, and we will get you to work. You'll be able to file a claim for everything. And that claim form will be available before the end of the week. So you'll be able to file a claim for those things. But right now, if you can't get to work or your tools are frozen, call the number and we will get out, we will help you, and we will get you to work.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Louis Aguilar, Detroit News. You know, this is described as a 54-inch water transmission pipe, but I don't know the technicality of what is that. Are there many transmission pipes? Are there many pipes of that size in the city?
So thank you. Yeah, good question. So we have 800 miles. This is likely one stick of pipe, maybe two, maybe 40 feet of pipe that has to be replaced. So we have 800 miles over 8 counties. So transmission main, I always give this analogy, it's very much like those large electric towers that you see that we call electric transmission lines. They run cross-country, great distances. In that case, high voltage. For us, it's high pressure, large diameter.
So is the size not unusual, or the fact that it's a transmission pipe as opposed to some other pipe?
So the smaller pipes we call distribution mains, 12-inch line, run in front of people's homes, serve people, run through alleys, that type of thing. So there's a distinction there. It's very much like a freeway versus a local road. So you can think of it that way. Is it large? 54 inches. You know, we have 72. We have 96. We had a break on our 120-inch diameter pipe a couple years ago. So 36, 24, 54, those are all in our wheelhouse.
So who owns the pipe? Is it
City-
GLEWA or
ci-
the city?
Yeah, it's,
So
go ahead,
let me
Mr.
say, Louis, you're asking a whole bunch of really good questions, and I have a bunch of engineers here, but let me try it in the way I see it as English. The huge transmission lines come from the pump station down on Jefferson, and they pump the water, Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, huge regional lines. The city of Detroit leased those huge transmission lines to GLEWA in 2014. Because they are huge lines that support multiple communities, the Great Lakes Water Authority runs those. That when they split off to a neighborhood, the water line that runs down your street, that's the city's responsibility. They are smaller lines. And so Gary Brown deals with all of the water lines that are running in the neighborhoods. GLEWA deals with the huge transmission lines that pump water across southeastern Michigan. How did I do on that? Okay.
So there's many of these kind of lines in many neighborhoods, I think.
I would say across southeastern Michigan. These are the huge lines that draw the water from the Detroit River, pump it up to Romeo and where the far reaches of GLEWA are. Those are the huge transmission lines, yes.
Thank you.
John Hewitt, WWJ. Forgive me, I was not working yesterday, so if this is redundant, I apologize in advance. I saw a media report saying that city officials said this was the worst water main break the city has seen. If that's true, Gary's smiling. If it's true, I'm curious how that's gauged, meaning by the size of the line and/or number of people impacted, or if it's not true, can you clarify
Yeah.
if that's proper context?
I called the mayor, very early in the morning, let's just say before 7 when I first arrived on the scene. And I described it as the worst water main break that I've seen in the 11 years that I've been involved with the water department. And what I meant was this was a 54-inch water main that affected a densely populated neighborhood. Normally, the larger lines, transmission lines, are not in neighborhoods. But just the vast amount of blocks that were underwater, the amount of people that were in distress at the time is why I described it as the worst that I had seen. And it was mainly because it was in a densely populated neighborhood as opposed to some of the breaks Sue has dealt with that were in cornfields out in the suburbs.
I appreciate the clarification. I have one other question, and not in an assessment of blame mentality, but we talk a lot about infrastructure, city, Gliwa. We've done many reports on it. Is this something that was pertaining to aging infrastructure and/or as far as preventing these types of things? As you look at this, I mean, is it too early to even start speculating as to whether, resources could be improved to try and head this stuff off? Was this one not foreseeable? Any idea, or is it way too early to even talk about stuff like that?
Yeah, it's way too early. We haven't even laid eyes on the broken pipe yet because of all the debris that's in the hole. And we'll have a better assessment of what happened and why it happened in the coming days.
I did have one more, please. I've read a couple of accounts as far as getting it fixed. I've heard 7 days, and then you mentioned 6 weeks to hopefully get everybody back. Can you reiterate in kind of one fell swoop to fix the repair and/or then get the neighborhood back to where it was?
I think you'll see the street repaired in 10 days to 2 weeks. If in fact there's not a part that has to be fabricated for a pipe that was built in 1930. So until we get in there and see exactly what the problem is, but typically that's how long it takes. When I say 6 weeks, I'm talking about getting all of the homes that have been affected restored and getting everybody back into their home. And it should take us about that amount of time.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions, 2 different areas. One, we keep hearing about the immigration issue. Mr. Mayor, can we make sure that there is a comfort level so we're not here with the chief saying somebody froze in their house because they were afraid to go out?
I've been up and down these streets. I've seen no issue on that. I'm talking to anybody who's raising an issue like that.
Well, maybe they're not bringing it to your attention, but it's not only an issue.
I'm going to go by facts and what I see. We've had Spanish-speaking volunteers out for the last 2 days. We are not seeing what you are saying, and so I'm not going to go down that road with you.
Well, I'm from Southwest, and I went to Western, Mr.
Do you have a different question?
Yeah, but hold on, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, there are some issues where some of them are scared to come out to get help. And I could take some of your team out there if you want me to introduce you to some of the people. And I'm quite sure the councilwoman from that area would tell you. And then the next questions, which I think you want to escape across this one, but we do have that issue right now. And I'm not the first one to ask questions about it. The joint partnership or steel that whatever happened with the water department, one of the issues was supposed to happen was that we were not supposed to have these issues because they were going to do the infrastructure. Are we now checking into other neighborhoods before another main break? Because we knew we had issues before they stole the water department, and now we end up with the same issue.
So before we get off on a false story, more than 300 of the residents of the 398 houses we have already spoken to and gotten assessments. So we are seeing good cooperation and I think confidence in the Detroit police and fire staff that have been there. As far as the overall system, we made an agreement in 2014, and Gliwa takes the main transmission lines, and the city of Detroit has the neighborhood lines. The city of Ferndale has the neighborhood lines in Ferndale. The city of Plymouth has the neighborhood lines in Plymouth. That's the way the system works everywhere. And We don't know at this point whether there was corrosion in the age of the pipe, whether there was something that shifted in the ground because we're in unstable soil in that part. We don't know, and we're not going to speculate on the cause until they go through and do what will be a forensics analysis, and we will know exactly what caused the break, and we will release that publicly. But unless one of the engineers here wants to speculate before they have an answer, that's where we are.
Well, I don't want to speculate. I just want to know if we're making sure. This is not the first time we had issues. We had issues on west side and east side with water main breaks. Are we making sure that we do a
Gary, you can
assessment?
talk about what you do on prevention every day.
Yeah, their capital program is $500 million over 5 years. So we spend about $100 million a year doing an assessment of our system, identifying the weakest parts of the system so that we could either rehabilitate or replace those pipes before they break in an emergency situation. But we have 2,700 miles of distribution lines in the city. Cleveland has 800 miles of transmission lines. And the mayor's already articulated there are a number of reasons why you have a break other than the age of the pipe. There's many factors that go into that. So I'm proud of the job that both GLEWA, and by the way, I sit as a board member of GLEWA on the capital improvement plan, the CIP. I chair that committee, and they do an outstanding job, and they spend as much as DWSD does in doing assessments of their system and making sure that that it's operating at optimal efficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Hi there, Annalise Frank with Axios. This might fall into the bucket of too early to talk about, but I think a couple of you have mentioned shifting soil or weak soil in the area. Is that a possibility as to what happened, and how are you sort of thinking through that?
Yeah, you're right. It's just too early to. We're speculating on the many breaks that we see citywide.
Just real quick, one more. I've been in some of the houses as well. There's some garbage in there, water, garbage. What do you want the residents to do with garbage?
Yeah, we'd like them to take photos of any damage of the property, including flood material that may have been damaged. DWSD will be out with contractors to bag it up. We know that already some residents are going to take the initiative. We just would ask them to be safe about going into a basement that has water in it, that may have electricity going. But if they bag it up and get it to the curb, DPW will pick it up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Thank you all very much.